All right, so welcome everyone. My name is Gabe. I am the host and moderator of the LGBTQIA plus ERG, and I am so happy that everyone is here. This is a very big topic that we've talked about in our ERG, and at the end, if we do have time, I'm going to show you how you can add your pronouns to your email signature. If you want a document, I can get that out. We are in the works of creating one. But we do have with us, I am very happy to announce GregRBaird is joining us. I'm going to have to read off of the accomplishments that he has done over the last, 31 years? So he is a global lecturer on LGBTQIA plus civil rights and equity. And again, he has been doing this for over 31 years. He is a storyteller, writer, and filmmaker. He was an executive producer on a documentary about Matthew Shepard. If you are not aware, he lost his life due to a hate crime. He was also a contributor to Dr. Ruth Westheimer's book, Guide to College Life. And he's also produced a short memorial film about the Pulse nightclub shooting titled 2:02 a.m. And he's worked with many companies throughout the U.S., showing us how to be more inclusive to everyone in the workplace. And lastly, he owns a small business, a food seasoning business called Gregor's Seasoning. So, Greg, if you ever want to get a Thryv, you're probably in the right spot.
I love it, especially with everybody eating. So,
yeah. So, welcome, Greg. We are so glad to have you here. How are you doing today?
good. Hi, everybody. I hope your lunch is well today. It looks good. Yeah, I saw a few people laugh about the Dr. Ruth Westheimer thing. So, if you want to ask me that question, it's a pretty unique story, needless to say, at the end. So, I'm coming to you live from Chicago, Illinois. It is a beautiful day. It could change in another 5 minutes, like it usually does. So who knows? But it's been really beautiful, and yeah, people are walking around in shorts, and it's 58 degrees out. So go figure. But it's a beautiful day the last few days. So thank you for being here. I know we're on a little bit of a time crunch, but I have a lot of stuff to cover, and I appreciate your time today. So just kind of sit back. One of the ththings I like to do is make sure that all of you feel engaged and not talked to. So, and that's always worked for me when I was a young boy. I said I've been doing this for 31 years, so I'm a little bit older than 40, by the way. So I'll give that one a go. So you're going to see me just a little bit, but I'm going to switch now to my PowerPoint, and I'm going to take you on this little journey that we have on talking about allyship and pronouns. So thank you for being here today.
And before we get started, if you do have any questions, leave them in the chat, and we're going to get to those at the end. So I'm going to put myself on mute and sit back.
So just a cover card. So I put your nice little logo on there. I am represented by a few different agencies. One is Engage and Speakers Inc. And then Speaker Hub is just a database with a bunch of speakers. So, and I talk about a variety of issues. And today we're going to talk about allyship and the respectful use and understanding of pronouns. And this could be a whole lecture on pronoun use. So I'm kind of touching base and giving you a really good understanding of things. But any questions you may have, put it in the chat box, and Gabe will ask those later. And of course, yeah, I'm all over the internet. I do a lot of content creating also on TikTok, Instagram, and then on YouTube. And I have my own website that I'll do a shameless post at the very end. So, you know, we're coming up very close to Gay Pride, or as I like to say, LGBTQIA plus Pride. And a lot of people ask, what are those flags that we see all the time? And I think it's really important that we talk about the representation, because when we're talking about pronoun use, it goes into those kinds of things, what we're about to speak of. And you may say, well, what is the rainbow flag all about? Well, I don't know much about it. Well, in 1978, Gilbert Baker designed the first pride flag. And the pride flag, the colors had different meanings, like harmony and peace, those kinds of things. And the LGBTQIA plus people took it as just a really wonderful way of representation for the community. So in 2018, the Black and brown stripes and the transgender non-binary stripes that you see at the top were added. And then not too far after that, we added the intersex rings. So, and there's different flags for everything on there. So there's a straight ally flag, which some of you may have, or a lesbian feminist. I mean, it's all over the place. There's a flag for everything. So, and I have little flags. If you can see me, I have something here on my desk, and everything's kind of all over. So anyway, it just represents our community, and I love that. The next picture, please do not laugh. I start off with this. It's from 1970. Oh my goodness, who is that boy on the left-hand side? So anyway, I'm showing this to you because I think it's really important. If I'm sharing all this information, I'm sharing you a little bit of my story. And this is my family. Yes, you gotta love the outfits my mother put us into. I see Lisa laughing over there. So anyway, I grew up in a really cis-white kind of family, middle class. My dad owned a hardware store. And one thing that my father would do is he would come home from work and tell us all the awful jokes, of bigotry, hate, and everything that he heard from his employees and people coming into the store, and he would share with them us at the table. So when I talk a little bit here in a second about hate is learned in a family, it was absolutely, everybody, learned in my family. We were learned how to hate Black people because my dad told us they were different. We had one Black family that moved into our town of 2,500. This was back in the 70s, and the town went crazy. And those kids went to school with us, and I thought they were wonderful. I didn't think anything was wrong with them, but my parents did. So much the fact on a Sunday when we took our little drive, we did the proverbial Sunday drive. We would go out to eat and then do a Sunday drive. My dad made it a point to drive by, their last name was Holmes, to drive by the Holmes house, and we would see them out front. And my dad would say, okay, boys, I want you to roll up the car window and lock the door. If you are telling your child to lock that window and roll it up, they're telling you that for some reason, those people on the other side are bad people. I never thought that. This picture reminds me a lot. Both my parents have passed away, and I came out to my mother when I was 30, a little bit late in life, and she never really got it, never really understood the gay thing. I grew up in a very religious family as well. And if you notice my strange Herman Munster-ish haircut I just did myself, it was one of those kind of combs that you drag through your child's hair that had a razor in it. You know, classic. And as you know, my mom's got the Star Trek outfit on, and there's my brother. One of my favorite pictures of my brother and I is this one. And something that I didn't share with you is my parents hit the gay lotto. Not only were my brother and I both adopted, we were adopted from different families, and drum roll, we are both gay. My brother's 2.5 years older, didn't know we were gay growing up, never talked about it, never was mentioned because we were adopted, and we were always, if we did something wrong, one of the things that my mother would do is she would threaten us and put a suitcase out on the front stoop of our house and say, you can leave now because somebody else can adopt you. So why in the world would I share with my parents that I was gay? And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Again, I always knew and accepted people for who they were, and I still do. I love them for who they are. If they're a good human being, kind, and they're that to other people, then they're a friend to me. And my brother does the same. He lives in Orlando, by the way. So I shared you a little bit about my story, and I think it's really important to ask you, what will you share with the world? We're all, you know, up on our cell phones and things like that, which are important. But one of the things we're not doing is looking at each other face to face and sharing our stories. And I think one of the reasons why we don't understand one another is because we're not talking about each other. We're afraid to share. We're afraid to talk. And I think it's really important when we're talking about allyship coming up and pronoun use, those are really key issues to feel free to share that information. And also, what is your legacy? And a real quick story. I want to tell you, we all find our legacies. It could be through our work. Maybe there was a message when you were in our childhood that you should be some great artist, or maybe you have a love of cars and you want to be a mechanic or whatever it may be. Well, mine, I always knew I was, yeah, I'm doing the quotes, the people person kind of guy, and I'm a former educator. And I had an offer when I worked in higher ed back in 2000 from a former agency that, Greg, we want to represent you full time, but you need to be near a major airport. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I lived in northern Michigan. I'm a Michigan boy. And I thought, where am I going to go to do this? Well, I spoke at my former college, excuse me, at Central Michigan University, right in the middle of Michigan. And I spoke there in 2000. And in 2001, Judy Shepard gave, it just mentioned about Matthew Shepard, his mother was speaking at Central Michigan University and asked me to come down and introduce her. I had met her just the year before through a lecture series. So I came down, my friend Tim was with me, and the whole time I'm pondering about what my agency had said to me, we want to represent you full time. And so I got up to introduce Judy, and I went upstairs afterwards in the balcony to sit with Tim, and there was a group of students with this huge banner paper from their dorm. I don't know if you remember when everything wasn't digital back in the day, but we had this huge banner paper, and the students had wrote a message to Judy on it, and they said, Greg, could you lead us down to the front of the theater when the speech is over to give Judy this banner paper? I said, absolutely, I will. So 2,000 people were in this auditorium, and they were all filing out, not a dry eye in the house, because it was, only a few years after Matt was murdered on a fence in Laramie, Wyoming. And I was leading them down, like kind of against the wave to the front of the stage. And there's this young red-haired girl going, Greg, waving at me. And my friend Tim goes, do you know who that is? I said, I have no idea who she is. So I got up to the front of the stage, showed the students Judy Shepard, introduced them, and then the girl goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're here. And I said, do I know you? And she goes, you were here a year ago, weren't you, speaking? I said, yes, I was. And she goes, I knew it was you. I always said I would say hello to you if I ever got to see you again. I said, well, hi, how are you? And she goes, well, I'm not finished yet. And I go, oh, okay. And she goes, I never was going to come to your lecture. I was in my dorm room and I was walking out and I saw the sign on the door that you were speaking here at the college. And she goes, I thought, what do I have to lose? I'm going to come hear you speak. And she goes, I'm glad I did. I said, well, gosh, I'm glad you did too. She goes, well, I'm not finished yet. And my friend Tim was like, will you let her speak? Well, here's what changed everything for me. She said, well, I didn't tell you everything. She goes, I was sitting in my dorm room. I was failing in school. I was dating an older girl. And she was abusive to me mentally and emotionally. And I wasn't out to my family. And I had drawn 2 maps up for my roommates so they could find my body after I killed myself. And she goes, I was walking out with my backpack to go to one of those locations, and I saw the flyer on the door for your speech. And she said, I thought, what do I have to lose? I came to hear you. I know you told, this is when I talk a lot about coming out issues. And she said, I know you told us to come out when you had a support system, everything. She goes, I didn't listen to you. Right after your speech, I went home, which was about an hour away. And you know what? I told my family and they love me the same. And that girl that I was dating, I dumped her. And I have to tell you, I went back, did well on my studies. I'm graduating in two months. And she goes, I always said, if I ever saw you again, I want to thank you for saving my life. Bam. And I will tell you, my friend Tim was a puddle on the floor. I was a mess. She hugged me goodbye, and she did a little boop, boop, skip, and off she went, never saw her again. And my friend Tim said, I'm kind of cleaning this up for all of you, but my friend Tim said in so many words, if that doesn't tell you what you should be doing for the rest of your life, you're a complete idiot. So that was my turning point. So I'm asking you, what is your legacy? So something to think about. So what is an ally? We're talking about allyship now, and LGBTQIA+ allyship. Some people, I like to call them co-conspirators. I love that. Collaborators, accomplice. It's a kinship based on action. So what you're actually doing is something who you are, not you're doing. You're coming along with us for the ride. So being an authentic ally requires that you give something of power, of resources that you may have, which is very important. I tell you, I love my straight allies. They're excellent, and they can show up in different kinds of ways. When an ally is not endorsing in hate crimes. So I want to kind of graze over this really quick. So keep in mind, positive ally, bad hate. Okay, so our statistics in 2024, the U.S. hate crimes rose so far this year. I know that's not a surprise for a lot of people. And in 2023, they hit record levels. To top that off, race and ethnicity bias, the Black community are the most targeted group. The LGBTQIA+ community, the transgender community are the most targeted group. And then we go down to religion. Anti-Semitism is counted for over half, and it's at an all-time high right now. Gender identity and non-binary, which I'll talk about in a minute, and disability. So hate crimes against the LGBTQ+ community were up 17%. That's a lot in 2023. The Southern Poverty Law Center has documented 1,225 hate and anti-government extremist groups currently operating in the U.S. And I will give you their website at the end, so you can kind of look up whatever state you're in, or if you're just looking at the United States as a whole, where those hate groups are at. And those are made up of white nationalists, KKK, anti-Muslim, anti-Asian, anti-everything. So you can go and look. A record number of anti-LGBTQ+ legislation was filed in 2023 and 2024. There's currently going on 510 state bills that have attacked the LGBTQIA+ community, and over 220 of those target the transgender and drag community. As an ally, we can be better people. One of those groups that I want to mention to you is the Phelps family. The Phelps family will go around and protest at different events. Say your son who has come out as gay, works in the military, comes home, and maybe he's been injured or unfortunately has passed away. They will show up at the funeral. They will show up in your community. If you're doing something that's inclusive for the LGBTQIA+ community in your area, the Phelps family will show up and picket with these awful signs. Not only does the family show up, but they've taught, as I mentioned about how hate is learned in the family, they've taught their young girls, their daughters, how to hate, and now the daughters have grandchildren. So if you're out and about and you happen to see them and you see, well, what are these little kids doing there? That's the grandchildren. So an ally doesn't endorse that. Not every family is like that. They are from a town called Topeka, Kansas, which I will bring up in just a moment. So what do? You have a peaceful demonstration elsewhere. You say it's okay to be gay. You're a great ally. You have a peaceful protest. Don't show up where these other people are at. We're too good of a people to do that. And communicate with your community. When we talk about community, it's accepting everyone in your community. And this is a sign I took actually a couple of years ago here in Chicago from our Pride Parade. This guy was sitting on the side. Excuse me. And he says, "I'm a recovering bigot. I'm sorry, free hugs." I love that. Nothing beats a good hug. This is Dennis and Judy Shepard. I had just mentioned them. They lost their son to a hate crime. It'll be 25 years ago this October, and they're straight allied champions. They go around and talk about anti-hate measures and community and bringing people together, and I love them. They're friends of mine. I often speak along with them at different events. If you want to know more about them, I will give that information towards the end of the lecture. And this guy is another straight ally champion. His name is Aaron Jackson. He has an organization called planningpeace.org. It's a nonprofit organization. He's a humanitarian environmentalist. And on August 17th of 2016, this is great. He sent the first pride flag in outer space, like in a missile. And you can go on YouTube and check this thing out. It's actually quite interesting. He's also dewormed 22 million people children worldwide, and he does a lot of stuff. He ended up buying a house in Topeka, Kansas, and it was white when he bought it, but a Army veteran ended up painting this house the rainbow, and they called it the Equality House. I love this story. So you could go in. There was some artifacts in there from LGBTQ plus history, which is very, we should all talk about our history because no one's going to do it for us. But you could go in there. It's very positive. They've had drag shows out front. They even had a garden, so you could visit and maybe take home a free tomato or something of the sort. But this is called the Equality House. And then he ended up buying the next door house and painted that. And that's known as a transgender house. That was in 2016. It is now known as the Mott House because it was named after Stephanie Mott, one of Kansas's most influential transgender activists. And when we talk about fighting goodness against hate, I absolutely love this because these two houses are guess where? They're right across from the Phelps family. So when you're combating hate, you're going to do a positive thing. And I love that he's done this. And I asked Aaron at one time, did Shirley Phelps ever say anything? She was the leader of the Phelps family. Does she ever say anything about the houses? He goes, I caught her one time at the mailbox and I asked her how she felt about my house. And she turned around real quick and said, well, it's kind of pretty. Pretty's okay in my book. So let me get a little taste of water here. So you may say, Greg, I'm an ally, but I don't want to go to a pride parade. I'm not comfortable. I'm not a flag waver or anything of the sort. That's okay. Everybody's on a spectrum. So you may start to get it. And as an ally, you're like, I don't get the pronoun thing. Well, as an ally, you're starting to get it, but you want to understand. You could be focusing as in the lime colored. I'm focusing my time on learning. I love the people that are on the learning curve that are saying, I want to learn, Greg. I want to understand better. I want to invite more people into my circle. And that is great. My father, who passed away just last November at 95, he was still kind of in the learning part. He knew he had two gay sons, but he had a lot of work to do on other things. But at least he was really working on a lot of stuff because there was a lot embedded over his lifespan. And then there's a super ally. Let's change some laws and policies. Let's get out there. Let's do a bake sale. Let's do this. Let's get out and do stuff. And everybody is on a different spectrum. So wherever you are at, that is fantastic. So allyship within your workplace and community. I'm going to go over a couple of these. An ally is somebody who's not represented the underrepresented group. So an ally would not be represented with the LGBTQ+IA community, but is somebody there that's like a straight ally, but holds a position of privilege and power where you can help that group out. They can advocate, take action, support the less represented group. And again, I love the straight allies. I think they do great work. Like parents and friends of lesbians, gays, PFLAG, that's a straight ally group. Listen and take direction from those with lived experiences of marginalization and oppression. People who are marginalized or oppressed don't take breaks. My friends call me the professional homo. I'm not kidding you because of all this stuff that I do. And that's kind of their little joke with me because it feels like I'm always on. One of the things we do, I don't know if you've done this, is optical allyship. You change things, but not on social media. So say you're on Facebook and your cover picture during Pride Month, it may be the progress flag, or during Black History Month, you may do Black History Month kinds of things. And it could be at your home or office. This is, if you can see this, I have a little flag in my pencil holder, and that's optical allyship, putting different things up. So it suggests what needs to be done, but won't take the next step. Some people won't take the next step. Again, as an ally, that might be your thing. And I think that's great. At least you're trying, at least you're doing something. And have colleagues show up for one another in solidarity, just like today. Company, community events, presentations, be there, get off the phone, pay attention, be an ally and educate the people who are not here today. And you can say, wow, I saw this great lecture today, GregRBaird, boy, you got to check this guy out. Tell those people today that are not here that you saw that and pay it forward. Know yourself and build on these outside friendships. We live in fear because we're not communicating. I tell it to everybody. It's universal, everybody. Have face-to-face conversations outside of your workplace. Share your mission on allyship. This is what I'm doing. This is what's important. Get to know your colleagues, learn about their ideas and individual skills. Don't just bypass those in a meeting or in an activity, but listen to them. Build bridges. I love that. Bring those bridges together. We have more things alike than we have that are different. And don't be afraid to respond to behaviors that prevent somebody's voice from being heard. We all need to be heard. Everybody has a voice. And you just don't let things go. Be an ally 100% of the time, not 75%, 100%. Learn from your past bias. I've had those. I'm sure a lot of us had past bias and prejudice. Share and be honest about those. I've talked about my past bias and things I learned as a child, knock them down, taking the good energy. I am always about that, taking the good energy, taking the good. And allies, we need to understand, we have family history. So what positive changes are you going to do? So here we go. We're going to be talking a little bit about pronouns now. And I'm just going to kind of give you a pronoun 101. But what I really want you to know is that for pronouns, the best thing for anybody to do with your company or family or community is you're telling people, we want to see you as you see yourself. We want to see you so everybody can. So, and we need to understand that language is our social fabric. It defines us who we are as individuals. And it's very important. If you want to know somebody's pronouns, here we go. Make sure you are sharing yours. So as an example, you would say, hi, my name is GregRBaird. I'm a global lecturer on LGBTQ civil rights. My pronouns are he, him, his. May I ask what yours are? Some people may say, I'm not really comfortable yet in sharing my pronouns, or they may do that. Also know that our pronouns can change over time. So some people may say, well, I'm going to go with my personal pronouns. I may want to share something that's gender neutral, which would be they, them, their. So it's a big area, everybody. It's a big area. We could cover all this. There are 72 different gender identities. Wow. And 23 personal pronouns. And I'm going to give you a website at the end so you can understand that. Some non-binary people also use something called a Z here and Z-zer. So it's because non-binary people use these
Doing good.
because they don't feel attached to the
wait.
specific gender. So when we refer to personal pronouns, we don't mean their pronouns necessarily private information. It's just that they're not. We mean the pronouns are referring to a unique individual. And remember, we all learned in school, a noun is a person, place, and thing. And we got to remember that as well. So our personal noun would be our name, by the way. And this is just not something, somebody said, well, it's just something like the millennials came up with. Just something the cool kids came up with. No, it is not. The concept of pronouns have been around since the late 18th century. So if you didn't know that, there you go. So the gender neutral pronouns are not a fad. Often people will make assumptions on pronouns as well, or what the gender of another person is. And that's why it's important that we use these pronouns, because we need to be correct. And the assumptions aren't always correct. I remember growing up, you know, we've assigned certain things as gender specific. So if you remember as a kid, all boys were supposed to wear blue. All girls were supposed to wear pink. Boys weren't supposed to play with Barbie dolls. Those are all gender specific things tied into an item. I will tell you, as a child, I wanted in the worst way a Betty Crocker oven, the cook-off oven. And I would never have asked my dad, who was very masculine, that, you know, I wanted a Betty Crocker oven, you know, the little plastic oven where the 100-watt bulb cooked the cake. And it was a gender specific item. And I remember a girl family we knew, the girl was doing something upstairs with her Betty Crocker oven, and I snuck up there and we made cookies and cakes. And I thought, if my dad walked in here, he would kill me. So we look at those kinds of things where it's okay if you want non-gender specific items. Let them play with whatever they want, because you get to understand different kinds of things growing up as a child and not be shamed. So what are the frequently asked questions about pronouns? I put this slide up because I think it's really important. One of you make a mistake. I'm confused. What's the difference between gender and sexual orientation? So the difference between gender and sexual orientation is gender identity isn't about who you're attracted to, but who you are. So male, female, genderqueer falls under the non-binary and umbrella. So this is a broad spectrum of that. So gender is about who you are. Sexual orientation is about your ties on being emotional, romantic to another person, that sexual attraction. This means that being transgender, feeling like your assigned sex is very different from your gender you identify with, isn't the same thing as being gay, lesbian, or bisexual. So your sexual orientation is about who you want to be with, and gender is about who you are. And that's kind of a gray area for people. That's where I get questions all the time about that. You know, I get questions like, well, what about, you talk about gender fluid and bisexuality. Remember, bisexual is about who you want to be with romantically, and gender fluid is your kind of along with he, she, they, your how you identify. All right. And cultures change over the time for all that kind of thing. What if you make a mistake? This is the biggest thing I get asked for a lot of companies. What if I say, well, let her speak, and it's not a her, they go by they. So if you're using the wrong pronoun, don't make a big deal about it. What I would do is don't apologize within the meeting. Take them aside one-on-one, say, listen, I'm learning all about this. Excuse me, I'm learning all about this. I apologize. What pronoun would you like me to use? And with your company using all this, it's important to know that you're valuing everybody in your company when you're using pronouns. Now, is it a requirement? Absolutely not, because I think if you're requiring everybody to use your pronouns, you're actually making some people nervous that they may be gender fluid or they're not comfortable yet. So when you're using those pronouns in a meeting, maybe your higher ups, the people who are in charge of your meeting and things like that, should include those kinds of things in the discussion. But again, it's at their own discretion. I think when you're using those pronouns within a meeting, you're being inclusive. It's a great place for everybody to work because you know you're being honored and respected as an individual. And you're using those, if you want, in your email signatures. And there's a lot of other ways. Name tags, video calls. You can see on my video call today, it's he, him, his. Business cards, social media profiles. If you're on LinkedIn, same thing. You have those up. It's a gradual course of everything, but don't have an adverse effect on other people by kind of pigeonholing them and making them use their pronouns, because I don't think it's always the right way of doing that and most comfortable. Give them a choice that a requirement is basically what it is. So why gender pronouns matter at work? When you are allowing everybody, your coworkers and your colleagues to use the pronouns, it gives them, again, a sense of individuality. You're a valued member of the team. If you're meeting someone new, introduce yourself with a pronoun if you want. It's a way to let people know you see them, you affirm them. We see you, we want to see everybody. That's the basic gist of it. It's not rocket science. It's including everybody. And in a world that seems really diverse and maybe at odds with one another, I always say it feels like everybody's on the edge of an argument or other things. When you're bringing that goodness into your company and that inclusion, it's wonderful. It also makes everybody, you know, when you're out hiring and you're putting human resources and you're out hiring people, your company is then known as a real inclusive place to be, that they honor people, they use pronouns, they respect people's individuality. And I think that is the best thing to go. And you may see more profits at your company as well. And a more inclusive company, more profitable company. It just makes people really engaged, really wonderful. You're sharing your stories. It's good business. It's good recruitment efforts. And you're creating a safe place as well. You, by far, do not want to have somebody come into your company that feels like they shouldn't be there, that they can't be themselves. That's awful. I know I've talked with friends of mine that have gone into education and have left because they didn't feel they could be an out school teacher or done the work they want to do. And they couldn't follow their path. They couldn't kind of follow their legacy, as I mentioned. And that's sad. That's really sad. There is data that supports that diverse teams do better, and we're all a team here being together. People do not want to be in workplaces where it's okay to discriminate against some people. I wouldn't like that at all. So what are you going to do? You look at your policies, you have lectures, you have meetings, you have fun things to do. I know Gabe is in charge of the employee resource group, the LGBTQIA+. You have those kinds of things, and you cover inclusive terminology. Just because I'm speaking here for 45 minutes today, you're not going to learn everything. You're kind of touching the surface, but hopefully I'm motivating a lot of you to use those pronouns and be a better ally and non-hate. And if you had hate in your past, to talk about it and move on from there. So just be consistent when you're talking about gender identity, the gender neutral kinds of things. Don't assume by what people are wearing, things like that. I'm a dark-haired guy. Well, I was up until about 10 years ago. But I remember, like I said, growing up, I wouldn't even think about wearing a pink shirt because it was always a general thing that was assigned. Pink was a female color. So we need to break those kind of stereotypes and codes because it really agitates people and it doesn't make the journey smooth. So we lead introductions with our own pronouns. I kind of mentioned this before, can help start a conversation, allow folks to tell you the pronouns, but they don't have to. Allies help create space for our transgender and non-binary community, members who safely share themselves. And I've heard from a lot of people, Greg, I don't get the whole transgender thing. I don't get the non-binary thing. You know what? At least you've admitted that, but grow from that. Educate yourself. Talk to somebody that follows that path, who they are, who they identify as their sexual orientation or as their gender. You may be amazed at what you'll learn and may be amazed at what a great gift that's been given to you. Educate yourself on transgender and non-binary people. Like I said, misunderstanding, bias, and discrimination doesn't belong in our workplace, doesn't belong in our community, and it doesn't belong within your family. Everyone needs to be respected at work. And understanding the gender pronouns, which I mentioned earlier. And again, I'm going to give you a little homework to do at the very end, but I'll help you and your community have a better understanding of everybody's identity. And above all, of any message I give anybody, be a great human, humankind, be diverse, inclusive, accepting, welcoming. Nothing is more wonderful than being welcoming. I did not feel that growing up as a child. My parents, other than my dad a little bit, went to the grave not understanding their two gay sons. Don't do that. Be a safe space for everybody. Be accepting. And here are some things, and I can always send this as an email later to be shared for all of you, but these are some great websites for you to check out. The Guide to Allyship, More Thoughtful and Effective Ally, guide to allyship.com. This is wonderful, the 72 genders list. If you want to look up what they are, it has a little flag next to all the 72 genders and an explanation, but 72gender.com, and it has the list on there. Pronouns.org is an excellent resource on personal pronouns. You can actually put yourself like within a story in a book or quotes and different things, how those pronouns are used. I love that. And the Southern Poverty Law Center I brought up about the different hate groups and things that they're doing to combat hate within our country, and it's more important than ever. The Human Rights Campaign does a lot of work. Mentioned that broad issues on human rights, of course, hrc.org. Trans Lifeline is a great resource for people to reach out on a 24-hour call system if you're having some problems out there, you're having some issues to deal with, support, that's the one to go to. I mentioned Matthew Shepard Foundation. They're doing some incredible work on combating hate, being inclusive, being wonderful, and sharing Matthew's legacy. So it's matthewshepard.org. And I think it's really important to share that story also with young people as well. We often forget, it's 25 years. We often forget about those kinds of things that happen. And we have to make sure that hate and those kinds of things do not happen in our community again. Also, I did a documentary on the Pulse nightclub shooting, and that's coming up in June, many years later. And we got to talk about those kinds of things so we don't copy those again. We don't do those kinds of things again, and how we can be better human beings. The Equality House that I mentioned to you in Topeka, Kansas, this is the planningpeace.org, great website to share. I love the positivity that Aaron Jackson does for our community and the world. And here is my shameless post. I had to put this up here. This is actually taken at a Pride parade in Palm Springs that I'm actually, oh darn it, I'm going to be there 2 weeks from today. So live your life from your heart, share your heart, and your story will touch and heal people's souls. And I love that quote. And if you ever want to reach out to me, my website is GregRBaird.com. So I'm going to switch the screen back to Gabe and see if we have any questions. And I would love that. Thank you for listening to me. I know I covered a lot, short period of time, and I hope I've enlightened a lot of you on a lot of different things that I covered.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. That was a lot of great information. I think we
Thank
can
you.
all agree that we've had a haircut that we have not, been so proud of. So I think we're all
Right.
there with you on that
That's a
one.
good way of putting that. I love that.
So yeah, we do have, if you do want to add some questions, go ahead. I think even for myself, I didn't even know, being part of the community, the Z and that part for the gender neutral, is that what that was? Yeah. So I think it's just, for me, if I'm in the community, it's a lot harder for people outside of it. So for all those websites and everything, I'll go ahead and put them in a document. I could send them out to everybody.
Okay.
But so we do have our first question. Jewel Smith, what do I and A stand for in the LGBTQIA plus?
The I is intersex, and the A is ally. Some people confuse it with asexual, but allyship. So we have this long acronym that keeps getting added. I often say LGBTQ plus, but I know a lot of people go LGBTQIA plus. So it's which I'm all inclusive with the plus, but yeah. So and look up, you're like, oh, I don't know about the intersex thing. Go and look at a lot of the things that I've listed, but again, it's all being inclusive and understanding different communities, and we just can't. There's a gray area. Let me put it that way, and we got to look at all the areas of our community and work life.
Mhm. Great. And then another question from Jules. Several of my daughter's friends use he, they, or she, they. Do you have a recommendation on which we should use when referring to them?
That's a great question. So it's their daughter.
My daughter's friends. So she's very involved in the diversity inclusion club at school as one of the leaders. And I'm very proud of her. She's not part of the community, so she's an ally, but she really has educated us a lot. So yeah, we hear she, they, or he, they, and sometimes they're not sure, and they try to get it right when talking with friends. So I'm just curious as a parent, we try to learn the pronouns so we can use them
That's great.
appropriately.
I love that you do that. I would ask your child, your daughter, what they want. What they
Yeah,
want.
and it's usually their friends. Like if they have it, they say they identify with she, they. So we just generally go with they if we hear our daughter using they.
Yep.
Just so they know that we recognize that as
I
part of
love
their
that you do that. That's great. Yeah,
But
I would just, when I talk with young people and what they want, I would just ask what pronouns do you
mhm,
wish to use. That's the best way of doing it, because then they feel heard. And
yeah,
I know for a lot of the young people, they want to be heard real good. So
yeah.
just ask them personally. And like I
Okay.
said, the pronouns can change.
Yeah.
I have a friend that was using he, him, and then a year later it was they. And that came up in a conversation, just a group of us. So things change. So yeah, so keep that in mind. But that's great. I'm so glad that you're positive and active about that, using the right pronouns. So well done.
Good, thanks. We have a good community. The other one I wanted to ask you is pronoun it, and I will go read the websites because we do hear other ones. But that's one I had heard, but I didn't understand that it pronoun.
Which one again?
It, it.
Yeah, a lot of people that are non-binary will use that pronoun along with the zer or z. It's just another addition to that. It's in the ones I covered for like the non-binary, the z, zir, and z, her. There's like the IT, and a lot of those are all included with that. And I thought I want to be really good today without throwing too much of information out there, because then I'm going to lose you all. So that's why I put the genders at the end for you to look at.
Thank you.
A great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gabe, if there's time, do you have another question ahead of me?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think that was just those only questions yet so far.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Yeah.
So first, thank you, Greg. I'm so proud that you were invited. I'm so proud that you have so many attendees, and we've got some people who learned a lot this last hour.
Thank you.
But you know what strikes me, I got all weepy at the beginning of your discussion. It's just how I roll.
Right.
But I was very touched by your life story and sort of your backstory. And what strikes me is then what was critical in your life, whether it's 10 years ago, 20, 30, 40, that allowed you the opportunity and the optimism and the resilience to be who you are today after some very, very apparently difficult times in your formative years?
That's a great question. I have always been the outgoing child. I'm 63, not a child, but when I was growing up, I don't know, because I think about a lot of different things. I was a chubby kid growing up, and my mother was a beautiful woman. She ran for Miss Michigan at one point, and she wanted her little boys perfect. So much the fact when I was younger, this is another tearjerker, sorry, but it goes with my story. My mother, remember when we used to get, I don't know, some of you are not of my age, but we used to get the Sears catalog, and my mom we'd pick out clothes, but mostly it was like Christmas time for toys. We'd circle them, what ones we wanted. My mom would take the male model out of that catalog and cut the male model out, and she would chop the head off and put it on the refrigerator and put my school picture head on top of it and would say, that's the kind of son that I want. So that had a real impact on me because I was body shamed as a kid. I didn't know what the gay thing was. I mean, I dated women, wasn't my thing. Beautiful women, just like they were great people. It's no connection, And I think after that incident and the suitcase on the porch and living in a very unsupported, unloving house, I said to myself as a young kid, now, I don't know where it came from, that I would never want to live my life like that. And I had friends that were very poor, that were not allowed in my house because they were poor. My mother said they smelled. I accepted people for who they were. And where I got that energy, whether it was like something that I was born with, I always knew what was right and that was wrong. So I treated people with a lot of respect, and I had a great sense of humor. And my humor growing up, I thought if I could make the bullies laugh in school, then they would leave me alone, and they did. So much the fact I did magic and clowning when I was a kid. Kind of creepy, but I did that as a kid to make other people laugh. And I just did not want people to feel that way I did. So, I went into education. It took me a while to get my degree, things like that on my journey. But I always loved people. I always knew that if I saw somebody that was having a lot of trouble, I could peel that onion away and see some goodness in there. And so when I say about my legacy, I still can do that. And when you have a big heart, it comes with a lot of different things too. Have I been hurt in the past? Absolutely. But there's goodness in people. Even when the world seems like it's turned upside down, I have that great energy. Things like that I can feed off, even though all of you are in these little small squares all over the planet, wherever you're at. I can feel that energy, and I love that. So when you're out saving the world, you're not making $1 million, but I'm making $1 million other ways. So whatever issue you got going on, try to find goodness with it. That's what I do, and I encourage my best friends going through a lot of trouble. You just encourage people to be the best who they can be. It's a temporary thing. I feel bad that my mom went to the grave not understanding. My brother and I, my stepfather, did the same thing. So when my bio comes out, you can read it. There's going to be a story per chapter, but it's very interesting. It can be some sad moments, but there's a lot of joy. I have a chosen family now and things like that. So it just makes a world of difference.
So I don't think we have any more questions. Any questions last minute? Good. Awesome. Well, thank you, Greg, so much for joining and sharing all this great information. Thank you, everyone else, for joining this. I'm going to do a shameless plug. If you are interested in joining the ERG, the LGBTQIA+ one, you can go through the Thryv Life website, sign up there, or you can Slack me and I can get you that information. So
thank you, everybody. I appreciate the time today. I appreciate Thryv reaching out to me, Gabe, Lisa, and everybody else that made it possible. Thank you so much.
all right, everybody. Y'all have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.